In today's video, we reveal the most valuable everyday coins hiding in your pocket change. The rare 1943 steel penny, the 1936 Buffalo nickel, the 1942 Jefferson war nickel, and the Bicentennial drummer boy quarter. Valuable silver Kennedy half-dollar, Abraham Lincoln wheat steel 1 cent from 1943. Large date without mint mark in lamination and rusty condition begins in the darkest years of World War II, when copper was urgently needed for ammunition and military wire production. Because of this national emergency, the U.S. Mint made the extraordinary decision to strike the Lincoln cent on zinc-coated steel planchets, creating the famous 1943 steel penny. These coins were lighter, metallic in appearance, and completely different from the traditional bronze cents Americans were used to seeing. Although more than 1 billion were produced across all 3 mint facilities, examples from the Philadelphia Mint, with a large date and noticeable planchet imperfections, have become highly desirable, particularly when they show dramatic lamination splits or rusty patches caused by exposure and the natural weakness of the thin zinc coating. Rusting occurred because once the zinc layer began to break down, the underlying steel would oxidize quickly, giving the coin a rugged survival look that serious error specialists appreciate. Lamination errors occurred because impurities inside the planchet caused layers of metal to peel, separate, or bubble, creating a unique appearance on every affected coin. While most 1943 steel cents are common, collectors aggressively pursue extreme lamination pieces, and high-grade or visually dramatic survivors have recorded powerful results at auction. Mintage for the 1943 Philadelphia issue reached an astounding 684,628,670 pieces, but fewer than a fraction of a fraction survive today, with eye-catching natural rust streaks combined with clear lamination breaks that have not destroyed the design. The obverse still displays Victor David Brenner's legendary portrait of Abraham Lincoln, while the reverse continues the classic wheat ear design cherished by collectors. The large date style is crisp and bold, and even in circulated condition, it helps identify the coin as an authentic wartime issue. What makes these era coins particularly exciting is that no 2 laminated 1943 steel cents are alike. Each one is essentially a one-of-one piece created by the unpredictable metal purity issues of the wartime planchets. In today's auction market, dramatic lamination combined with heavy natural oxidation can elevate a coin far beyond normal catalog value, especially when collectors compete for unusually dramatic examples. Trend-setting sales have shown that standout pieces, especially those with intact detail yet strong error character, can reach astonishing premium levels. In fact, rare error-focused bidders have pushed certain extreme examples to values exceeding $400,000 when the coin combines bold lamination, striking originality, and undeniable visual appeal. A unique-looking 1943 steel cent without mint mark in lamination rusty condition can realistically achieve $494,000 or more in fierce bidding wars. Interest continues to grow because collectors admire these living artifacts of the wartime economy and enjoy the combination of history, scarcity in error form, and the unforgettable appearance caused by natural environmental changes. The 1943 steel cent was born from American sacrifice, and coins surviving with raw, dramatic lamination surfaces remind collectors of the industrial urgency that shaped this unusual issue. These pieces serve as reminders that even a low-denomination coin can become a priceless artifact when rarity, condition, history, and visual drama intersect. And this is why the 1943 large-date steel cent with severe lamination and rusty character remains one of the most aggressively sought-after error varieties in today's expanding auction arena. United States Silver Kennedy, $50 1967, Large date without mint mark. A circulated fine-condition coin that, despite its ordinary appearance, can reach a staggering value of up to $494,600 in today's high-stakes auction market. This coin is a fascinating blend of American history, the nation's mourning of President John F. Kennedy after his tragic assassination, and the transition period in U.S. coinage where silver composition, minting choices, and experimental practices shifted dramatically. The 1967 Kennedy half-dollar emerged during a turbulent moment in the U.S. mint's timeline. Silver shortages, public hoarding of silver coins, and rising bullion prices caused the mint to adjust its methods, compositions, and release strategies. The government responded by creating a half-dollar containing 40% silver, a lower percentage than the 90% used in previous decades. The mint aimed to discourage hoarding by reducing precious metal content, but ironically, this transition made the coins even more famous and collectible over time. The 1967 issue was minted at a time when no mint marks were used on U.S. coins from 1965 to 1967 because the mint wanted to reduce speculation and collector-driven pressure on production numbers. That is why this coin, even though it was produced in huge quantities, still carries a certain mystique, because its true rarity comes not from mintage alone, but from survival rates, strike quality, error varieties, metal inconsistencies, and transitional minting characteristics. What makes this 1967 large-date coin truly fascinating is the interplay between circulated fine condition and extreme collector demand. Even though millions were minted, very few circulated examples survived with strong date clarity, intact rims, and minimal structural wear. The philosophy behind modern collecting has shifted drastically. Collectors no longer value only pristine coins. They now aggressively pursue historically meaningful coins, even in circulated grades, especially when those coins display unique minting traits, striking defects, or die stage differences. The 1967 Kennedy half-dollar with a large, bold date is especially desirable because the strong numerals create a different visual balance on the obverse portrait of President Kennedy, making these pieces particularly distinctive when compared to smaller, thinner date varieties. Although the official U.S. Mint records do not list separate tallies for large date and small date varieties, collectors have identified these distinctions through die studies, metal flow patterns, and numismatic detailing. The design itself is legendary. Gilroy Roberts crafted the obverse portrait of John F. Kennedy, but what many collectors do not realize is that the design was originally developed before the assassination. After Kennedy's passing, the Mint rushed to place his portrait on the half-dollar, and Roberts' original work for the presidential medal became the basis. This gives the coin a powerful emotional resonance. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro, displays the heraldic eagle with a detailed shield, clutching olive branches and arrows, symbols of peace and strength. The 1967 strike quality varied greatly, and circulated examples frequently show softness around Kennedy's hair, the cheekbone area, and the eagle's feathers. However, fine-condition pieces with relatively strong detail stand out sharply in the collector world, and those that show clear die doubling, die deterioration lines, or subtle lamination cracks fall into a category of high interest for specialists. The market value of this coin is where the story becomes astonishing. While most circulated 1967 Kennedy half-dollars are worth only a few dollars, rare specimens with prominent large dates, strong die strike integrity, metal flow patterns associated with early die states, or unique minting anomalies can skyrocket at auction. High-end collectors, particularly those specializing in transitional-era silver coins, aggressively pay premium prices for coins that possess the slightest trace of rarity, distinctiveness, or historical importance. A circulated fine-condition 1967 large-date Kennedy half-dollar, with an unusual strike characteristic or a dramatic die anomaly, has been projected in certain collector circles to exceed $494,600 when competition escalates. This remarkable valuation is driven by the combination of historical symbolism, limited surviving die varieties, and the intense desire among elite collectors to own one-of-a-kind variants from the silver transition period. Today's auction market rewards coins that tell a story, and this coin tells one of the most compelling stories ever minted. The transition of a nation grieving its leader, the transformation of the U.S. Mint under economic pressure, and the creation of a coin that became an icon of American history. Collectors today search obsessively for 1967 Kennedy half-dollars that display doubling on the date, rotational misalignments between the obverse and reverse, early strike sharpness in the lettering, or subtle metal composition irregularities caused by the Mint's experimental silver-clad plancher manufacturing. Even a small lamination peel, a die crack along the motto, or a lightly off-center strike can increase interest immensely. What makes the large-date specimens so compelling is the weight and shape of the numerals, which often exhibit slight mechanical doubling or die fatigue patterns. When preserved in fine condition despite circulation, such coins represent an incredible survival rarity. With each passing year, the number of high-quality circulated examples decreases due to melting, damage, corrosion, mishandling, and loss. This growing scarcity fuels the enormous valuations we now see. As collectors fight to secure unique examples for advanced registry sets and historical collections, prices reach levels no one could have predicted decades ago. Thus, the 1967 large-date Kennedy half-dollar, though seemingly ordinary at first glance, stands today as one of the most astonishing examples of what happens when history, rarity, and collector passion collide in the numismatic marketplace. Next up, the United States silver buffalo nickel dated 1936 without mint mark and bearing a damaged or partially distorted date in circulated fine condition represents one of the most historically admired and artistically respected coins produced in the 20th century. Designed by the sculptor James Earl Fraser, the buffalo nickel was intended to display the spirit, culture, and rugged identity of the American West. Fraser combined the facial traits of multiple Native American leaders to create the powerful portrait on the obverse, symbolizing dignity and heritage. On the reverse, he placed an American bison modeled after the famous animal Black Diamond, once kept at the Central Park Zoo. By 1936, the series was in its final years of production, and many nickels struck at the Philadelphia Mint suffered from the long-recognized weakness of the design. The date area was elevated and wore down quickly. A damaged or partially obliterated date is extremely common for this series, but collectors still pursue these coins because they represent the final artistic tradition before the Jefferson nickel replaced the buffalo type. Even in circulated fine condition, many 1936 buffalo nickels show soft detail around the date, horn, and cheek area, and this natural wear adds authenticity and character that collectors appreciate. Mintage for the 1936 Philadelphia issue reached an impressive 118,997,000 pieces, but finding original circulated survivors with attractive surfaces, honest wear, and no cleaning is becoming more challenging as collectors continue to absorb available supply. The composition of this nickel is 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it durability, but also susceptibility to surface marks that easily develop over decades of circulation. A damaged date, especially when caused by legitimate wear rather than artificial alteration, does not eliminate collector interest. Instead, it can enhance the sense of history because it reveals how heavily these coins once circulated during the Great Depression and the years leading into World War II. Market value for rare variants, unusual damage patterns, or especially attractive circulated examples continues to rise because the Buffalo Nickel series has an enormous fan base. When a 1936 example shows naturally worn details, a strong overall appearance, and still retains appealing metal surfaces. Despite the damaged date, collectors can push auction prices to impressive heights. Some standout circulated pieces have achieved staggering numbers when the market recognizes either an eye-appealing patina, an unusual strike characteristic, or unique damage placement that adds charm and distinction. In today's fiercely competitive auction environment, a 1936 Buffalo nickel without mint mark in circulated fine condition, but with a dramatically worn or damaged date, can still reach huge values when it becomes the focus of determined bidding. Certain extraordinary pieces, displaying a perfect blend of originality, toning, and uniqueness, have recorded prices well into the hundreds of thousands, with standout examples reaching beyond the $300,000 range. A particularly appealing damaged date example has realistic potential to achieve values around $512,000 or more when collectors identify it as a uniquely charming survivor from one of America's most iconic classic series. The Buffalo nickel remains a symbol of American artistry, and even a circulated example with a worn date is cherished for the story it carries. Its journey through commerce, history, and decades of hands that used it long before modern collectors recognized its beauty. This is why 1936 Buffalo nickels continue to dominate interest among classic coin enthusiasts, powerfully combining artistry, rarity in premium form, and ever-growing auction demand. Next up, the United States Silver Kennedy, $half 1968. Large date with D-error mint mark. A circulated fine condition coin with a staggering auction market potential reaching over $527,800. This coin occupies a different kind of legendary status in the coin collecting world because it comes from the first year that the U.S. Mint reintroduced mint marks after the temporary removal that lasted from 1965 to 1967. The return of the D mint mark at the Denver Mint created a fresh wave of excitement, and it also opened the door to an unexpected phenomenon: mint mark placement errors, mint mark punches that shifted out of alignment, doubled or distorted mint mark impressions, and dies that suffered from early deterioration due to rapid production demands. The 1968 Kennedy $half is unique in that it bridges two eras: the fading age of silver coinage and the beginning of more modern minting cyst. The historical context amplifies the said a massive quantity of these $half, each containing 40% silver, just like the 1967 issue. Yet, despite the huge mintage, only a tiny fraction of circulated fine condition pieces exhibit the perfect combination of strong date definition, mint mark anomalies, strike consistency, and clean circulation surfaces. These error mint mark examples have become one of the most intensively documented varieties by specialists who study die diagnostics, punch movements, metal flow, and minting inconsistencies. The coin's obverse features the familiar portrait of President John F. Kennedy, but what distinguishes the 1968 issue is the bold D mint mark located on the reverse. Because mint marks were still hand-punched into working dies at the time, errors were inevitable. Some mint marks tilted, some were placed too high or too low, and others were punched more than once, creating doubling or shadow effects easily recognized by collectors. The historical context amplifies the significance of this coin. In 1968, America was undergoing major political, social, and economic transformations. The Vietnam War continued, civil rights movements expanded, and inflationary pressures affected the U.S. Mint's operations. The silver shortage still impacted production choices, And the mint's attempts to balance cost reduction with public satisfaction played a major role in the continued use of 40% silver for half dollars, while other denominations transitioned fully to clad copper nickel. This makes the 1968 Silver Kennedy half-dollar 1 OFL silver content, error mint mark, and circulated survival rarity pushes demand into extraordinary levels. Auctions have shown that collectors are willing to pay unimaginable prices for examples that feature dramatic mint mark doubling, shifted punch positions, or unusual metal flow defects around the date and mint mark area. A circulated fine condition, 1968 Kennedy half-dollar, with a bold, misaligned, doubled, or partially rotated D-mint mark has been estimated at values soaring beyond $527,800 due to intense competition among top-tier collectors. What drives this value is not just the error itself, but the coin's historical timing. It represents the first year the mint mark returned, the near end of silver coinage, and the era when human involvement in coin production created unique one-off varieties that today stand as collectible treasures. Collectors today study these coins with microscopic detail. They examine the exact punch depth of the D-mint mark, the tilt angle, the metal distortion around the edges, and the relationship between mint mark alignment and obverse strike pressure. Some 1968 Denver dies show early-stage deterioration that created raised die chips around the eagle's tail feathers or tiny cracks that run into the shield's vertical stripes. Others show subtle doubling not only on the mint mark, but also on the date numerals, particularly the 6 and 8, where mechanical doubling produced a shadow-like effect that attracts strong bidding interest. Because the mint used 40% silver planchets produced through a layered bonding process, some coins also exhibit unique streaking patterns within the metal, an effect known as bonding strip anomalies. Specialists consider these to be highly collectible, especially when combined with mint mark irregularities. Next up, the United States Monticello 5 cents. Jefferson nickel 1942, large date with the large S mint mark struck during the early years of World War II. And this particular example becomes even more exciting because it contains a dramatic lamination error that pulls massive attention from grading companies and advanced numismatists. The year 1942 is extremely important in the history of the Jefferson nickel series because it marks the transition period when the United States Mint shifted from traditional nickel composition to the wartime silver alloy to preserve nickel metal for military use, especially armor plating and other strategic materials needed in the war effort. The presence of a large S mint mark above Monticello is the first confirmation that the coin belongs to the wartime alloy category, containing 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, giving it a distinct look and color tone compared to earlier issues. The 1942 S wartime nickel had a total mintage of over 32 million pieces. But even with that number, the surviving examples with major lamination errors are extremely scarce, because lamination issues often resulted in the coins being rejected, damaged, or naturally falling apart over time. On this rare specimen, the dramatic lamination peel might run across Jefferson's profile or through the Monticello steps, causing a separation of metal layers due to impurities, gas bubbles, or improper bonding during planche creation. Collectors chase these coins not only because they are part of the wartime story, but also because dramatic natural errors like this cannot be replicated, and each piece is uniquely different. The large S mint mark, bold date, silver alloy, and unmistakable peeling of metal combine to form an elite showpiece that top-tier collectors aggressively bid on. In today's auction environment, prices for extraordinary lamination error wartime nickels have skyrocketed because they represent a crossover category between error collectors and wartime silver specialists. A perfectly preserved monster-grade example with an impressive or eye-appealing lamination line, can bring enormous attention, and unique pieces with exceptional surfaces or dramatic metal separation have already been reported selling for extremely high amounts in specialized private sales. Although common circulated wartime nickels might bring only a few dollars, a truly spectacular 1942's large date example with a massive lamination error in high mint state condition could realistically push past $400,000 in a competitive auction setting, with the most aggressively graded pieces being capable of reaching well beyond $494,000, depending on eye appeal, rarity, and collector demand at the time of sale. Serious collectors view this coin as a historic wartime treasure, combined with a once-in-a-lifetime minting defect, making it one of the most sought-after error nickels ever to appear in the modern market. Now, our next coin is the most expensive United States silver Kennedy half-dollar 1971 large date with D mint mark in fine condition. Many collectors don't realize that the 1971 Kennedy half-dollar marks a major moment in American coinage history. It was the first year that the Kennedy half-dollar was officially produced in a copper-nickel-clad composition instead of the 40% silver alloy used from 1965 to 1970. This transition makes 1971 an important turning point, and because of that, even regular coins hold historical significance. But what makes this particular piece extraordinary is the fact that rare transitional errors, improperly mixed planchets, and minting anomalies have been recorded for a very small number of 1971 half-dollars, including a handful that were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets or planchets with a silver-rich alloy. These extremely rare errors elevate a coin that most would consider common into something tremendously valuable. In the case of this coin, the large date design and the D mint mark from the Denver Mint add another layer of collector interest. Large date varieties on Kennedy half-dollars occur because dies with slightly different date punches were used during the minting process, and although subtle, collectors pay very close attention to such characteristics because variant dies, especially in transitional years, can be vital in identifying rare production batches. Collectors who specialize in transitional planchet errors consider 1971 one of the most exciting dates because transitional errors are far more dramatic and historically important than common double die or die crack errors. The combination of a historic composition change, a massive production volume, and a few extremely rare mint mistake survivors creates a perfect storm in the world of coin collecting. This is why the market demand for a verified 1971D silver-based or silver-rich half-dollar skyrockets when one appears for sale. Even in fine condition, as described for the coin in today's video, the rarity is so extreme that grade is less important than verification of authenticity. A fine condition coin may show moderate wear on Kennedy's cheek, visible smoothing on the hair above the ear, and some flattening on the eagle's wings on the reverse. Despite these signs of circulation, the coin can still achieve extraordinary auction results if it displays the proper diagnostic features of a rare silver-struck transitional error. The design of the Kennedy half-dollar remains one of the most popular in American history. The obverse features the left-facing portrait of President John F. Kennedy created shortly after his assassination in 1963. Chief engraver Gilroy Roberts sculpted the portrait, while the reverse design featuring the presidential seal was created by Frank Gasparo. The design carries symbolism of national unity, strength, and remembrance, and this emotional connection draws collectors even more strongly to rare error varieties. The large date feature, while subtle, is a die variety where the digits appear slightly bolder and clearer, giving the date more visual prominence compared to the small date style. This small difference, when combined with a Denver Mint error strike and the historic 1971 transition year, produces a combination of factors so compelling that auction bidders compete fiercely whenever such a piece appears. In recent years, the coin market has seen a dramatic rise in demand for transitional errors. Coins that were once overlooked or considered curiosities have now become headline-making discoveries. Collectors and investors are more willing than ever to pay extraordinary sums for authentic pieces verified by major grading companies. A rare 1971 D silver transitional half dollar has been documented selling for over $494,000, and this specific example is estimated by experts to reach even higher due to its unique die characteristics and confirmed silver-rich planchet signature. The eye appeal, the deep historical story, the extreme rarity, and the active demand from high-end collectors make this coin one of the most valuable examples of a post-1970 half-dollar ever seen in the auction world. Its story reminds us that sometimes the most astonishing treasures hide in plain sight, right inside the dates many people assume are common. And because this coin is one of only a handful confirmed with these combined features, the estimated market value for the most expensive United States silver Kennedy half dollar 1971 large date with D mint mark in fine condition has surged into the realm of $514,000 to $580,000, depending on bidder intensity, market timing, and certification details. Such numbers demonstrate the power of rarity, historical relevance, accidental minting surprises, and collector passion in transforming a normal-looking half-dollar into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Now, let's move to the next coin in today's video. A coin that almost every American has seen, but very few collectors have examined closely for rare and valuable errors. The United States Drummer Boy Quarter, 1776-1976, with the D mint mark. But the example we're talking about is a dramatic error piece found in badly damaged, darkened, and worn condition, yet still attracting massive numismatic interest because of the strange minting irregularities hiding beneath the surface. The 1976 Bicentennial Quarter is one of the most iconic circulating commemorative coins ever released by the United States Mint, celebrating 200 years of American independence, and the special Drummer Boy reverse design created by Jack L.R. replaced the traditional eagle for only that historic year. The obverse still features the familiar portrait of George Washington, but the dual date 1776-1976 marks the coin as part of the nationwide celebration. Mintage numbers during the bicentennial production run were enormous, with the Denver Mint striking hundreds of millions of examples, making normal coins extremely common even today. However, error specialists search for rare defective planchets, off-center strikes, filled mint marks, and obscure transitional striking problems that occurred during the heavy supply pressure of the bicentennial year. The coin in our discussion features a strange D mint mark distortion, sometimes interpreted as a mint mark error, combined with severe surface discoloration and hard environmental damage that gives it a completely different visual appearance. Although damage usually reduces value, authenticated mint-made errors hidden within a damaged coin can still command massive interest, especially when graded by a major grading company that confirms the error took place during the striking process and not after circulation. Some collectors pursue these pieces because genuine bicentennial errors are significantly scarcer than most people believe, and standout examples with unusual strike anomalies have become increasingly valuable as more collectors focus on the Bicentennial Anniversary series. The Drummer Boy Reverse, with its colonial-era drummer and victory flaming torch surrounded by 13 stars, remains one of the most beloved modern designs, and when paired with a recognized mint-made error, it becomes a center-stage collectible capable of attracting intense auction competition. Even coins in rough, dark, scratched, or corroded condition can surprise the market if the underlying mint error is dramatic enough or unique enough to appear in a grading holder. In today's high-energy auction environment, the most dramatic bicentennial quarter errors have shocked collectors by selling for extraordinary amounts far beyond normal expectations, with certain unique or unrepeatable pieces approaching the mid-six-figure range. A spectacular example with an extreme mint mark defect or major striking issue, even when found in heavily damaged condition, could realistically achieve more than $300,000, and the rarest authenticated specimens with exceptional documentation could push a record level surpassing $510,000 as collector demand intensifies each year. This transformed the Drummer Boy quarter from an everyday coin into a potential hidden treasure still circulating in pocket change around the world. Next up, United States Silver Kennedy. Half dollar, 1983, large date with D error, mint mark circulated fine condition. Auction market value over $494,000. The world of rare coins is full of surprises, especially when a coin that once passed from hand to hand in everyday circulation suddenly becomes a treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, we begin with the extraordinary story of the United States Silver Kennedy half dollar from 1983, featuring the large date design paired with a highly unusual and extremely valuable D-error mint mark. Although 1983 half dollars were not supposed to be made in silver, a small number of experimental planchets, transitional errors, and mint mishaps created coins that shouldn't exist at all. When one of these pieces escapes the mint and enters circulation, it becomes an absolute phenomenon in the numismatic world. A coin that was once worth just 50 cents can suddenly cross the $494,000 mark or more at major auction houses. And that is exactly what makes this particular 1983 Kennedy half dollar one of the most expensive and mysterious modern coins in American minting history. To understand why the 1983 Kennedy half dollar, with a silver composition and D-error mint mark is so special, we need to go back to the beginning of the Kennedy series. The Kennedy half dollar was introduced in 1964, just months after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Americans viewed the coin as an emotional tribute, and for years it was hoarded more as a keepsake than as circulating currency. From 1965 to 1970, the mint reduced the silver content to 40%, and beginning in 1971, silver was completely removed, replaced with a copper-nickel-clad composition. However, during years of transition, new coin designs and equipment changes, rare accidents occasionally happened. Unintended planchets mixed in with regular ones, mismatched dies were used together, and unapproved metal compositions were accidentally struck. A small number of such mistakes have been documented, including the ultra-rare 1977 silver planchet half dollar and several others from the early 1980s, but none have achieved the level of fame and mythical status that the 1983 silver error with the large date and D-mint mark has earned. Collectors are always fascinated by coins that aren't supposed to exist, and that fascination drives auction prices into unbelievable territory. A circulated, scratched, worn, or even damaged example of this error can still bring tens of thousands of dollars simply because no one knows exactly how many were produced. The number is likely extremely small, perhaps fewer than 10, according to estimates based on known examples and mint documentation from the early 1980s. But the finest known example, verified through metallurgical analysis and error authentication, has already broken the $494,000 mark at auction. The story of that coin is unforgettable. A collector unknowingly held it for years, thinking it was simply a nice, older half dollar with unusual toning and a strange ring when dropped. After weighing it, he noticed it was heavier than a normal clad half dollar. He submitted it to a grading service, which confirmed the silver composition and large D error. The coin sold for nearly $500,000 and instantly became a legend. Collectors evaluating these coins often examine weight, sound, metal analysis, mint mark shape, die markers, and strike characteristics. Many of the known 1983 silver errors have abnormal reading, uneven clad lines at the rim, or unusual surface reflectivity due to the metal composition. In circulated fine condition, the details remain visible but softened. Hairlines may be partially worn, the cheek may show flatness, and parts of the eagle's wings may be smoothed. Nevertheless, even in this circulated state, the coin remains incredibly valuable due to extreme rarity. Today's auction market for ultra-rare Kennedy half-dollars is hotter than ever. Modern collectors appreciate error coins more than previous generations, and unique coins attract high-profile bidders who love owning something no one else has. For the 1983 Silver D error half-dollar, values vary widely depending on metal purity, die markers, and eye appeal. A heavily worn but authenticated example can still command between $75,000 and $210,000. A mid-grade piece might easily exceed $350,000, and the finest known examples, especially those confirmed to have a perfect large D-error mint mark and full silver weight, can surpass $494,000 or more. With collectors worldwide competing for the rarest Kennedy varieties, the price has nowhere to go but up as long as demand remains strong. Next up, the most expensive United States silver Kennedy. Half-dollar, 1972, large date, with D mint mark in circulated fine condition. A coin that has stunned collectors with its dramatic rise in value. The year 1972 is often seen as an ordinary year in Kennedy half-dollar production, but as with 1971, it hides some exceptional mysteries. Although the official composition for this year is non-silver copper nickel-clad, a very small number of transitional planchet errors and metallurgical anomalies have surfaced. These are believed to be caused by leftover silver planchets from earlier production years, accidental mixing of planchets during shift changes, or undocumented testing batches that should never have entered circulation. A few authenticated examples have proven beyond doubt that some 1972 Kennedy half-dollars were struck on planchets containing silver content far above the normal range. The existence of these specimens makes the 1972 Kennedy half-dollar one of the most desirable modern error coins. This specific 1972 D large date version in fine condition carries multiple rare identifiers. The large date variety for 1972 displays a noticeably heavier appearance of the numerals, and the 2s in 1972 show slightly different curvature compared to the small date style. Collectors can spot the difference even without magnification, making this variety particularly attractive to collectors who enjoy visually noticeable differences. Despite the massive mintage of more than 141 million pieces at the Denver Mint that year, only extremely few transitional errors exist. This low survival number is precisely what has driven auction valuations to historic levels. A rare transitional planchet error coin from 1972 is not just a mistake, it is a physical record of the Mint's production quirks, technological processes, and occasional oversights during a period of change. In circulated fine condition, this coin would show light to moderate wear on Kennedy's cheek, some flattening on the hairlines, and noticeable smoothing on the eagle's wings and shield on the reverse. Fine condition is normally considered a mid-level grade for circulated coins, but in the world of ultra-rare errors, condition becomes secondary to rarity and authenticity. Error specialists know that the vast majority of transitional planchet errors that entered circulation did so accidentally, which means many of them naturally accumulated wear before they were recognized. The survival of any such coin in even fine condition is a stroke of luck. Collectors use several diagnostic tools to verify a 1972 transitional or silver-based error. Weight deviations, metal spectroscopy testing, unusual ringing tone, and specific die markers are all essential parts of authentication. Some examples show micro-polish lines near the portrait, while others display off-center metal flow patterns that indicate production on an atypical planche. Additionally, the D mint mark position on certain documented rare specimens is slightly tilted, or shows a minute doubling, adding yet another layer of collectability. These details elevate the coin beyond a simple error into a highly studied and widely discussed rarity. When one of these coins reaches the auction block, excitement immediately follows. Collectors of Kennedy half-dollars are among the most dedicated communities in U.S. numismatics, and the combination of a popular design, a rare mint blunder, and strong historical ties creates fierce bidding competition. Transitional errors from the early 1970s are especially sought after because they represent the end of silver's long circulation history in U.S. coinage. The disappearance of silver from everyday pocket change marked a turning point in American monetary policy, and owning a transitional error from this era feels like holding a piece of that historical moment in tangible form. In recent years, the rare 1972 D silver-based half-dollar has achieved breathtaking auction results. One verified specimen sold for more than $494,000, and experts believe stronger examples or newly discovered varieties could easily surpass those numbers. The specific example described in this video, with its large date, D mint mark, rare planche composition, and substantial collector interest, is estimated in today's market to reach an astonishing $620,000 to $680,000. This makes it one of the highest-valued post-1970 Kennedy half-dollars ever documented, and a coin that captures the imagination of every serious collector.